Terry, I think we're just waiting on a couple of the applicants, so Brianna is going to give them a quick call.
All right, thank you.
All right, Terry, it looks like we have everyone here now and we are live on YouTube.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the Committee of Adjustment, Town of Fort Erie Committee of Adjustment meeting of November 18th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. I will now call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to introduce you to the committee members and staff. Committee member David Gianfrancisco, committee member Ken Burden, Brianna Antonio, secretary treasurer, who will be recording minutes of tonight's meeting, Mackenzie Cece, meeting host, who is doing the back-end technical duties, and myself, Terry Moore, chair of tonight's meeting. To those members of the public who may be participating electronically in the public meeting portion of this meeting tonight, you may wish to put your view on gallery view by clicking the top right corner from the speaker's view. I also ask that you're mindful of background noise for the duration of this meeting. Please also note that participating members of the public will remain in the virtual waiting room via telephone or electronically until they are called upon during the public meeting. This is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act for the purposes of considering both minor variances and consent applications. Members of the committee have been provided with all written comments received by agencies and the public prior to the meeting. Committee members are asked to mute their microphones until you are asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak and vote by raising your hand. The purpose of the meeting is to obtain input from residents relative to the application. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked to raise their virtual hand when they wish to speak. On a computer, you can do so by clicking the participants in the bottom center of the screen and then clicking by raise hand. On a mobile device, you can tap more in the bottom right and then tapping raise hand. You will then be brought into the meeting by staff, and you can then unmute yourself and start your video by using the buttons on your screen. If you are participating by phone and wish to raise your hand, press *9 and you will be unmuted by staff. Next, we will hear from the applicant or agent and then from those in support or opposition to the application or ask questions. We ask that each attendee keep their comments to under 10 minutes to allow all attendees the opportunity to speak. Applicants and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar once a decision has been made on their application. Each application will proceed in the following order. Secretary Treasurer to summarize purpose and effect of application and any comments received. Applicant called upon to speak and make further comments if they have any. Committee members will then ask questions of the applicant. The public will then be asked to speak one at a time and to state their full name, address for the record, and any comments they may have towards the application. Chair will close the applications once all comments have been heard. Committee members will then make their decision on the application, approved, refused, or deferred, and state if any conditions apply. Please address your comments and questions directly through the chair. Each application will be heard in the order in which they appear in the agenda. The notice of decision will be provided to all applicants stating the outcome of the hearing and any conditions of approval if required. Please make note that correspondence and comments received this evening are restricted to the matters of the Committee of Adjustment and the Planning Act. In considering each application this evening, the Committee of Adjustment will have due regard for the provisions of Section 45 and Section 53 of the Ontario Planning Act of 1990 as amended. A 20-day appeal period exists for each application heard this evening. Final appeal dates are noted on the notice of decision and are available by requesting a copy in writing. I will begin by asking the committee members present if they have any conflicts of interest with respect to any of the applications tonight. David?
I do not.
Ken?
I do not.
And I do not. I now ask the Secretary Treasurer if notice of this meeting has been properly given in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Planning Act.
Yes, all property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands were circulated as per Planning Act requirements.
Thank you. And have you received any requests for adjournment or withdrawal respecting any of tonight's applications?
We have two applications are requesting adjournment. Application consent file B4721 for 1899 Bowen Road and minor variance file number A7321 for 2095 Nye Road.
Okay, thank you. So if there's anyone in the audience that are attending to listen to those applications, they will be heard at a later date. Thank you. We will now proceed with the first application tonight. I call first application consent file B4321 and minor variance file A6621, 291 Cambridge Road West and 142 Shannon Road. And I ask staff please to bring the applicant into the webinar.
Testing.
Mr. Roberts? Roberts, oh, sorry. Are you ready to proceed tonight?
Yes.
Okay. I'd ask the Secretary Treasurer to please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please.
This is staff's recommendation report for consent application B4321 for 291 Cambridge Road West and 142 Shannon Road South by Jody Robbins. The consent application proposes a boundary adjustment between 291 Cambridge Road West, shown as Part 1 on the application sketch, and 142 Shannon Road South, shown as Part 2, and 3 on the application sketch. Part 2 is proposed to split from 142 Shannon Road South and merge with Part 1 in order to resolve an encroachment of the existing dwelling. The remainder of 142 Shannon Road South Part 1 is intended for future residential development. This proposal will result in lots with the following frontages and areas that will be addressed, that are below the bylaw requirement, that will be addressed by concurrent minor variance applications A6621, and they have been submitted to request relief from these deficiencies. This proposal is considered to be good planning as a boundary adjustment increases the lot area of an existing undersized parcel and brings it closer to conformity with the zoning bylaw. The boundary adjustment will also resolve an encroachment of the dwelling onto 142 Shannon Road South, and therefore planning staff has no objection to the consent application subject to the following three conditions. 1, the approval of minor variance file A6621, which I will read through in a minute. 2, that the applicant's solicitor and or land surveyor provide the Secretary Treasurer with a legal description of the subject parcel to be registered on title together with an original copy, an electronic copy of the deposit reference plan. And 3, payment of final consent certificates fee required upon the applicant's demonstration of completion of conditions in the amount of $177. Minor variance application recommendation report from staff for file A6621, again for 291 Cambridge Road West and 142, for 291 Cambridge Road West by Jody Robbins. So the purpose and effect of this application is to permit several zoning deficiencies associated with 291 Cambridge Road West Parts 2 and 3 on the application sketch. The application seeks to permit a reduced rear yard setback for a shed, reduced setback of a deck to the interior side lot line on the west side of the dwelling, reduced setback of the deck to the front lot line, and increased height of the dwelling to 2 stories. Where zoning bylaw number 12990 requires a minimum rear yard depth of 1 meter. to the accessory structure. 0.07 meters is proposed, where the bylaw requires a minimum setback to the deck to the interior side lot line of 1.5 meters. 1.40 meters is proposed, where the bylaw requires a minimum setback of the deck to the front lot line of 3 meters. 1.9 meters is proposed, and where the bylaw requires a maximum building height of 1.5 stories, or permits a maximum building height of 1.5 stories. 2 stories is proposed. In writing this report, staff have evaluated the request against the 4 tests of a minor variance, and in conclusion, they support the requested variances as they meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, with the stipulation that the reduced rear yard setback to an accessory building be applied only to the existing shed. Building has no comments. Building department. Our infrastructure and infrastructure services department is requesting that a condition of consent be that the applicant and owner provide an easement in favor of the town of Fort Erie over the sidewalk and 300 millimeters beyond the sidewalk limit that is located within parts 1, 2, and 3 of the severance sketch. This easement would be for the access, maintenance, repair, and replacement of the sidewalk. They have no comment. Our infrastructure services department, no comments on the minor variance, and no further comments were received from any agencies or commenting authorities.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Robbins, you want to make any comments on the application or the correspondence?
Just on the fact that, like for the shed's been there for at least 40 years, maybe 50 years. The house has been there at least 70, 80 years. So it's just cleaning it up on the 1.5 to 2 story. And as for the easement, Terry, I think you know that a lot of Crystal Beach's houses are right close to the sidewalks. So I'm sure there's no difference between this house and the lot that I own compared to 90% of the other properties in Crystal Beach.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any questions of the applicant? David?
Just one. So one question I've got, Jody. So are you against having that easement for the sidewalk? Like, are you opposed to having that condition?
No, I'm not against it. I was just stating how Crystal Beach is.
No, I know. I just want to make sure that you're on board with what they're suggesting. That's all.
Oh, yeah. No
Okay.
problem.
Thanks, Terry. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Ken, do you have any questions?
No, I do not have any questions.
Okay, thanks. I was going to ask one, you're not going to put another fish market up there, are you? On that lot? Didn't you know?
No, that's across the street. That's that that triangle.
Anyway, okay. I had no questions. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise their virtual hand and we will be asked to speak one at a time.
And just as a quick reminder to raise your virtual hand, you can do this by clicking on the button labeled participants at the bottom center of your computer or phone screen. And then at the bottom of that window, click the button labeled raise hand. And I don't believe we have anybody joining by phone, but I will just give it a moment. Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Thank you. If that's the case, I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed. And I'll ask the members present if they'd like to express their views on the proposal. I'll start with Dave.
I'll be in favor of both proposals. It meets the 4 tests and it has approval from town staff, so I have no issue with it.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I concur with my fellow member. It's good planning. It corrects an existing situation on a number of issues. So I'll be in favor of both applications.
Okay, thank you. I now entertain a motion.
I'll put a motion forward that considering all written and oral arguments received tonight, that minor variance file A66/20 be accepted with all conditions set forth by town reports. And I'll put a motion forward that consent file, considering all written and oral submissions, that consent file B43-21 be accepted with its conditions set forth in the reports.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
I'll second both motions, Chair.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much for showing up.
Thank you.
The second application tonight is consent application B4421. Address is Nye Road. Applicant Lee White, PLW Consulting. The owner is Rhonda Anderson.
Hello, Mr. Chair and committee.
Good evening, Mr. White. Can I ask the Secretary Treasurer, please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
Consent application B44 21 for 010178 Nye Road and 010179 Nye Road by Rhonda Anderson. The application proposes a boundary adjustment between two vacant parcels that are located in the agricultural area of the town of Fort Erie, west of the Ridgeway Thunder Bay neighborhood. Part 1 on the application sketch is proposed to be split from Part 2 and merge in title with Part 3. The end result will be two parcels approximately 20 hectares in size with frontage onto a traveled road, Nye Road. Both parcels are intended to continue their agricultural use and may also be suitable for future development of one single detached dwelling per lot. The proposed boundary adjustment is consistent with provincial, regional, and town planning policy and is consistent with good planning principles. The agricultural function of the subject lands will not be negatively impacted by this proposal, and the final parcel configuration is an improvement from the existing situation, as both parcels will be regular in shape, front onto a traveled road allowance, and comply with the zoning bylaw. A portion of the subject land is identified as being within an area under the regulation of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. The committee should look to comments from the NPCA in this regard. The subject property is also identified as being within an area of archaeological potential as identified on Schedule D of the town's official plan. An archaeological assessment is not required in the instances as no other planning act approvals are necessary, and the proposed boundary adjustment does not constitute development under provincial or regional planning policy as a new parcel is not being created. Therefore, planning staff have no objection to this consent application, subject to the following two conditions, which are that the applicant solicitor provide the Secretary Treasurer with the description of the subject parcel, be registered untitled with the electronic copy of the deposit reference plan, and payment of the final consent certification fee in the amount of $177. We have no comments from our Infrastructure Services Department building. Niagara Region has provided regional planning and development services staff do not object to the proposed consent, subject to Part 1 merging on title with Part 3 and to the satisfaction of any local requirements. And I believe that is it for any comments. No other comments or objections were received.
Thank you very much. Mr. White, would you like to comment on the application?
Yep, just very briefly, Brianna's summarized it very well. We've currently got two parcels, one being 25 acres, one being 75. Part 3 has only got frontage on a seasonally maintained road being Cherry Hill. So basically resulting in 2 50-acre parcels would allow us to have, as was mentioned, regular shaped parcels, both of which would have frontage on Nye Road, which is maintained year round. So it seems to be pretty straightforward. We've got two lots, just doing a boundary adjustment. There will continue to be two lots and the use will not change. Residential would be permitted currently and would be permitted on the resultant lots as well. So realistically, it seems like a pretty straightforward application, but I'd be willing to field any questions that you may have.
Thanks very much. Ken, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Through the chair, I think I read it somewhere, Mr. White, that portion of the Cherry Hill Road is actually just a clay road. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's one of the major motivating factors is to get the frontage on Nye Road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. David, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair.
And I have no questions. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand and you'll be asked to speak one at a time.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. I will declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed. And I'll ask the members present if they wish to express their views on the proposal. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I would be in favor of supporting the application. The proposed boundary adjustment is consistent with provincial, regional, and town planning policy and is consistent with good planning principles.
Thank you. Dave?
I will also be in favor of this tonight. I agree with Ken's comments, and it's just a, in my view, a minor boundary adjustment.
Okay, thank you. I now entertain a motion for these applications.
Mr. Chair, I would like to put a motion forward that in consideration of all the written and oral submissions, that consent application file B4421 does meet the Planning Act criteria, consistent with provincial policy, complies with both Niagara and town official plans, and that it be approved.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals have been received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much for appearing.
Thank you.
Everybody else set? Next application tonight is consent file B45 and minor variance files A67 and A68. The address is 313 Cherry Hill Boulevard South. The applicant is Christopher Langley and the owner is Vladimir and Katrina Radojovic. I apologize for the pronunciation. Good afternoon, Mr. Langley. Are you ready to proceed?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay.
Would the Secretary Treasurer,
Yep.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Would the Secretary Treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
Yes. This is staff's recommendation report for consent application B4521 for 313 Cherry Hill Boulevard by applicant Christopher Langley, owner Vladimir and Katerina Radichovic. Hope I said that right as well.
I think you did better than I did.
So, the consent application proposes the creation of a new lot. The retained lot part 1 and new lot part 2 on the severance sketch are proposed for future residential development. This proposal will result in lots with reduced frontages in which concurrent minor variance application A6721 and A6821 have been submitted. I'll go through those following this report. Creation of a residential lot in the urban area demonstrates an efficient use of land and resources in accordance with the provincial policy statement and the region and town official plans and is considered good planning. As per the town's official plan, residential intensification, infill development, and redevelopment is encouraged in urban areas that have sufficient existing or planned infrastructure. Planning staff have no objection to this consent application subject to the following 4 conditions. 1, approval of minor variance files A6721 and A6821. 2, payment of 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication to the town of Fort Erie for the creation of the new residential lot. 3, that the applicant solicitor provide the Secretary Treasurer with a legal description of the subject parcel together with a registered electronic copy of the deposited reference plan. And 4, payment of the final consent certification fee in the amount of $177. I'll now read through the application, the report recommendation report for minor variance files A6721 and A6821, again for 313 Cherry Hill Boulevard South. The purpose and effect of this application is to reduce the minimum lot area requirements for Part 1 and 2 in order to facilitate the severance application. The applicant is requesting the following variances: a reduction to the minimum lot area for Part 1. The application proposes a reduction to 474.30 square meters, whereas the R1 zone requires 600 square meters, and a reduction to the minimum lot area for Part 2. The application proposes a reduction of 474.3 square meters, whereas the R1 zone again requires 600 square meters. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet the following 4 tests to be considered minor and supportable. Is the variance minor in nature? The requested reduction in lot area from 600 to 474 square meters for Parts 1 and 2 is minor in nature. The applicant has demonstrated that the lots will be sufficient size to accommodate appropriately sized dwellings and meet all other regulations under the R1 zone. In meeting these provisions, the proposal maintains sufficient space to accommodate the proposed dwellings, amenity areas, services, and parking on each lot. The variances are not anticipated to have an impact on surrounding properties or the character and streetscape of the surrounding community. Is the proposed variance considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of the land and buildings? Given that the property is owned R1 and is designated urban residential, approval of the variances to facilitate the creation of new residential lots is considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of the subject property. Does the proposal meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? The general intent of the minimum lot area requirements in the zoning bylaw is to ensure that lots are of adequate size to accommodate proposed development and to maintain the streetscape and character of the area. The proposal meets this intent. The applicant has demonstrated that the lots will be of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed dwelling, amenity areas, services, and parking. Additionally, given that the parcel fabric of the surrounding community is variable and dynamic, and that the frontages of Parts 1 and 2 exceed the minimum lot frontage requirements under the R1 zone, the minor reduction in lot area is not anticipated to have an impact on the overall character or streetscape of the surrounding community. Lastly, does this proposal meet the general intent of the official plan? The official plan states that lands designated urban residential are intended for a variety of housing forms, including single detached dwellings. The plan also states that residential intensification, infill development, and redevelopment is encouraged in urban areas that have sufficient existing or planned infrastructure. Alongside the concurrent application for consent B4521, approval of these variances will facilitate the creation of new residential lot. As such, the proposed variances meet the intent of the official plan, and therefore, in conclusion, based on the above comments, planning staff supports the requested variances. We do have comments from our Infrastructure and Services Department, who are requesting that consent be conditional upon 2 conditions, which are that the applicant make payment of $500 to the town of Fort Erie for 1 tree to be planted on the boulevard. And the second condition, that an overall lot grading plan for Part 1 and 2 to be submitted to the applicant by the applicant/owner. Where possible, each new lot is to have self-contained drainage system with an approved outlet. Any shared swales, ditches, and rear yard catch basins required for overall lot grading shall be constructed prior to the issuing of building permits. The grading plan shall also identify any existing trees that are proposed for removal. Please note that trees within the town road allowance require permission from the town for removal, and the applicant and owner may be required to enter into a lot grading agreement with the town of Fort Erie. They have no comments on the minor variance portion. And I believe we have no more comments from agencies that there is a concern in the area. We do have some neighbor comments that I'm going to read, some public comments. The first one is from Barb Nimmo, and it reads, "Good day. I have some concerns regarding this property for development of 2 homes to be built on this site and the variance required to do so. First is the drainage and storm sewer issues on the corner of Cherry Hill Boulevard and the Circle. I reside at this corner, 302 Cherry Hill, and the standing water due to improper drainage is a continuing issue. By adding 2 new builds in this area, my concern falls with how will the town ensure protection from further flooding in this area, and how will new grading add to this problem? Second, the suitability of the land to build 2 homes with the attached garages on smaller lots when the surrounding neighborhood tends to support homes on adequate sized lots. I'm not against a new build on this property, but the above concerns favor not granting this variance to create 2 new smaller lots. Thank you for your time. Looking forward to any updated information." The second is from a Tim Fredette. It reads, good morning. With concerns regarding the property at 313 Cherry Hill Boulevard, I live at 314 Willowwood Avenue directly behind said property. My biggest concern with the potential building of 2 new dwellings is drainage. As we sit today, that property already drains and floods my property with new elevation changes, the 2 new buildings, and the fact that standing water on that particular corner is already a huge problem. My worry is where will the water be directed to run off? Also, squeezing 2 homes onto 2 smaller lots doesn't seem to blend well with the existing homes in the neighborhood. I ask myself why the town will apply different zoning rules to different areas of the beach, only to allow somebody to vary them their way around said rules. Please share my concerns with the committee. And those are all the comments we have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Langley, would you like to comment on the application or any of the correspondence received?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I have just a brief presentation. I think Brianna summed it up pretty nicely, but I'll just hone in on some of the issues that have been presented. Okay, I'll continue.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the application before the committee today is to sever the lot to create 1 new residential lot and then 1 retained lot, as well as to construct a new residential dwelling on each of the severed and retained lots. On the severance, the original lot will be split into 2 equally sized lots of 474 square meters, which will require a variance to the bylaws. They don't meet that R1 zoning designation of 600 square meters. This is the only variance that's being requested from the committee this evening. The lots will have 18 meters of frontage on Cherry Hill Boulevard, and the lot depth will be same as the original lot of 25.9 square meters. It should be noted that the proposal also seeks to construct detached dwellings on both the severed and retained lots, and the proposed dwelling built form and setbacks will not require variances to the zoning bylaw. It's our opinion that this application meets section 45(1) of the Planning Act, as the proposal meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and are minor in nature. The subject site is in keeping with the intent of the official plan designation of urban residential, and residential detached dwellings are a permitted use. The proposal also aligns with the new Crystal Beach secondary plan, as it respects the existing physical character of the neighborhood through gentle density of new infill dwellings that are compatible with the surrounding character. The general intent of the zoning bylaw is to ensure that lot areas are adequate in size relative to the neighborhood lot fabric in an effort to protect the character of the neighborhood. The proposed lot areas of parts 1 and 2 aren't atypical in lot sizing that exist within the Crystal Beach neighborhood as a whole, and the lots within the immediate area range in size and lotting patterns. The lot frontage minimum is maintained, allowing for the built form to suit the streetscape along Cherry Hill Boulevard. Also, the lots are appropriately sized to meet the built form requirements, as I previously stated, in the bylaw to ensure that we'll be able to construct future dwellings on parts 1 and parts 2. The proposed land division and the creation of new lot is appropriate, desirable for the area, as it will create a lot fabric that's appropriate for the immediate neighborhood context. And it also allows for gentle infill on existing established lot fabric. It's our opinion that the reduction in lot area is minor and it meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw and is also compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. In our opinion, it's also minor in nature. In regards to the draining and stormwater or storm sewer concerns, I can speak to the drainage on site, which is we are in agreement with the conditions that are being presented by development engineering at the town of Fort Erie, and will comply to produce a grading plan which coincides to keep all of the lot drainage on site wholly on site. And we're also in agreement with all the rest of the conditions that staff has presented today. And I'd be more than happy to answer any other questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much. David, do you have any questions of the applicant?
No, I don't, Mr. Chair.
Ken, do you have any questions?
If I may, Mr. Chair, there seemed to be an issue with regards to the removal of trees, and I didn't quite catch all Brianna's comment on that regarding the staff. Could you have that repeated for me, please? Thank you so much.
Brianna, could you reread the it was the part about, I think, the permission. You need permission from the town if you're going to remove a tree that's on town
It's
property.
on town property.
Yeah.
Yes,
Any
so
tree on
if,
town property has to have approval.
correct. So if
Okay.
any boulevard trees are intended to be removed, so any trees located not on private property, but on town property, then approval from the town will be required to do so.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that clarification. No other questions. Thank you, Mr.
All
Chair.
right. And I have no questions at this time. I would now ask Anyone in the audience that wishes to comment, please raise a virtual hand and you will be asked to speak one at a time.
Chair, we do have one member of the public that is interested in speaking, so I'll be bringing them in.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Hazinski.
Good evening.
And what is your address, please?
My address is 312 Cherry Hill Boulevard. I'm actually right across the street from the parcel.
Okay.
And again, my name is Ron Hozinski, and I'm not against responsible building on that land. The neighborhood and the street involved, I've been there for over 20 plus years, is a location where the homes have more than the required minimum of square meters. In fact, most of the homes are built on land that is quite spacious. So in line with a lot of the streets in Crystal Beach, this street specifically has homes that is very spacious. So I hear Mr. Langley speaking about the general density and squeezing in more parcels in there, but I don't think that's very responsible to do that. It is the intention. I have a few questions. Is it the intention of the new purchaser to create a new lot as stated under purpose and effect, a lot that would be under the square footage, and then would the new owners reside in both parcels where they are building, or is the building and the splitting of this land into two parcels purely speculative? And I don't know if you want to wait to the end, because I have a few other questions and to document them and I can go through them, or would you rather have them answered? I'm not sure.
Mr. Langley, would you like to answer that question now? Did you? Oh, you're muted.
Yep, just unmuted. My understanding, that's a two-part question. The first part is regarding the lot areas within the site, and this is why we're before the Committee of Adjustment today, is because the current lot areas don't meet the zoning bylaw requirement, the zoning R1 requirement for 600 square meters. They are 474 square meters apiece. That's why we are before the Committee of Adjustment today to seek a variance to allow for a lot area of 474 square meters. Regarding the second part of the question, to my understanding, the owner has 2 young children. However, we never spoke on the tenureship of the lots and whether or not he will reside on them.
So at this
point,
point,
will reside on them, I should say.
So at this point, we don't even know if the owner is planning on residing on either parcel after they build one home or the other. And are they planning on building both homes in tandem?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, the owner and myself have not spoken specifically if the lots will be built in tandem. Today, we're just before the committee to determine whether or not the severance will be appropriate for the neighborhood.
Okay, well, I do question that, is because there's a responsible error when you have someone who is actually building a home and planning to reside in the neighborhood. I mean, that speaks volumes. The ability to say that this is a minor variance, I'm unsure as without a plan showing exactly how this affects the neighboring properties regarding the enjoyment of the property, the privacy. We spoke on the drainage, and we also have issues with the conservation of the green space. Presently on the property, you have, I would say, 4-story evergreens located in the rear of the property. And late last fall, a company came in and just started cutting down trees in the area. I actually had their name and address when they were doing that too. I don't know if that juncture, were you folks already the owner of the properties? I'm gonna try to pronounce the name, the Ratchavasics. Did they own it in the fall of last year?
Mr. Langley, are you aware of that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm unaware of the date at which the owners have purchased the property. Yeah,
the trees that they were felling were at least 4 stories tall, and they just came in like bulls and just started tearing apart at the land. The other neighbors that spoke and wrote the letters, I'm sure they can speak on that as well. In concerns to the 600 meters versus the 474 meters, a difference of 126 meters, there's a 21% difference for each lot. So in this case, at what point is the decision made that this is no longer a minor variance, because the sum total of both lots now come to 42% reduced in square meters? So I do question that, and this could have major ramifications. I mean, there's an ability to presently build a structure on a spacious lot that is more in line with the other parcels on Cherry Hill Boulevard and blend in with the other existing structures on this beautiful street. Streets that have people that have been in their homes for 20 plus years and they reside on the street. The town of Fort Erie designates the subject property as urban residence. It still is, it's truly not urban. This is still a neighborhood where neighbors see neighbors walk horses down the street. So I truly question the status of that neighborhood being called urban. We have the ability to keep the parcel in line with other properties on this historic street that is presently having the restoration of the historic Bay Beach stone gates as you enter the street from the Fort Erie access side. I question agencies, entities, whatever you want to call them, regarding conservation authorities, regarding the green space and the trees, the research that has been done on that. I also question the fact that trees were felled last year in the fall. We do obviously, Barbara Nimmo and the other neighbors do question the drainage and the stormwater because presently it fills up at the stop sign. So it's a dangerous place to stop on a stormy day when the street fills up with water. We also have questions, or I have questions regarding the electrical lines and guy wire because located on parcel, just a second, I'm flipping the map. It's parcel 148. There's a utility pole with guide wires that are directly in line with the, it looks like the driveway where the potential garage space is going to be. So it doesn't look like it's an unobstructed driveway area as well. So I request that we look at managed growth through responsibility and stewardship of this street and the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any questions of Mr. Kaczynski? David?
No, I do not.
Ken?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
And I do not. Okay, thank you very much for appearing. We'll take your statements into consideration. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Langley, do you have any other comments to make?
I do not know.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to comment on this application?
Chair, I'm seeing no one else that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, then I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed. And I'll ask the members present if they'd like to express their views on the proposal. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was just taking a moment to reread the comments from Canadian Niagara Power regarding the relocation or upgrading of that pole if necessary. So we do have those comments from Canadian Niagara Power. That's their only comments. Through the chair, we are reliant upon the staff's presentation in accordance with our official plans, both from the province, the region, and the local municipality. And the staff have demonstrated that it is an efficient use of land in accordance with these policy statements and also the official plans from each of those municipal authorities. Planning staff have not stated any objection to this consent application. What I am hearing is that we are seeing a change in the neighborhood. And with change, we will get comments that this is not something that people want. We appreciate that. Having said that, we must be responsible in good planning. And I believe that's what staff have demonstrated here, both in the consent application and in administering the 4 tests for the minor variance. I would be in support of both applications, sorry, all 3 applications, the 1 consent and the 2 variance.
Thank you very much. David?
I'll also be in favor of both minor variance files. They meet the 4 tests, and in my view, the reduction in lot size is minor. I'm also in favor of the consent file. Like Ken said, it meets with the official town plan, it meets with regional planning, it also meets with provincial planning. And I didn't see any staff objections to it, so I will also be in favor of that consent file.
Thank you very much. I now entertain a motion with conditions on these applications. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'll make forward a motion regarding the consent application first,
All right.
that consideration of all the written and oral submissions, that consent application file B4521 does meet the Planning Act criteria and is consistent with provincial policy statements, is compliant with our growth, Niagara region, and town official plans, and that it be approved. Of course, there are some stated conditions here which need to be included in that motion.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, the consent application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final as long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Ken, do you want to continue?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion with regards to the minor variance applications A67 and A6821 for 313 Cherry Hill Boulevard South. That in consideration of all the written and oral submissions, that minor variance files as stated do meet the Planning Act tests for the minor variance, and that they be approved.
A seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. Your application has been approved for the minor variances. You receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much for appearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Okay, the next application is consent file B4621, 71 and 83 Albert Street. Applicant is Robert Laneson. Owner is Peter Passero. Could they be brought in? Good evening, Mr. Laneson. Are you muted?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Are you ready to proceed tonight?
Yes.
Okay. I would ask the Secretary Treasurer to please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please.
Staff's recommendation report for application B4621 for 83 and 71 Albert Street by Robert Laneson and owner Peter Passero. This consent application proposes a boundary adjustment between two existing parcels municipally known as 71 Albert Street Parts 1 and 2 on the severance sketch and 83 Albert Street Part 3 on the severance sketch. The applicant proposes to sever Part 1 from Part 2 and add the severed lands to Part 3. Single detached dwellings are currently present on the two existing parcels, and the applicant is requesting this boundary adjustment to facilitate the extension of their rear yard at 83 Albert Street. Planning staff have no objections to this consent application, subject to the following conditions: that the shed on Part 2 be removed or relocated to be in conformity with the zoning bylaw setback requirements, that the applicant solicitor submit a legal description of the subject parcel to be registered on title with the original electronic copy of the deposited reference plan, and that payment of the final consent certificate be required in the amount of $177. Infrastructure Services Department, Building Department have no comment on this application. Fire Services has no comment or objection. I see Canadian Niagara Power, no objection. No objection from our Drainage superintendent and Niagara Parks has no comments or objections as well. So that is it for all the comments on the application.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lainson, would you like to make any comments on the application?
No, I have no further comments.
Okay, do the committee members have any questions of the applicant? David?
No, I do not, Mr. Chair.
Ken?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
And I do not. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand if you wish to speak.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed, and I'll ask the members present if they'd like to express their views on the proposal. David?
I'm going to be in favor of this consent file tonight. It seems like a minor boundary adjustment between two neighbors, and I don't have any issue with that.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I concur with my fellow member. No objections. I'm in favor of the application.
Okay, thank you. I now entertain a motion with conditions on these applications. David?
I'll put a motion forward the consent file B 46-21 be accepted with all written and oral submissions found tonight with the conditions set forth
Okay.
by the town committees.
Okay, seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision. The decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days. Thanks very much for appearing.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
You too.
As well.
The next application tonight is minor variance file A6921, 212 Alderson Court. The applicant is Christine Gra, and the owner is the same. Good afternoon or good evening. How are you?
I'm well. You?
Doing okay. Thank you. With the are you ready to proceed tonight?
I am, yes.
Okay. Would the Secretary Treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
This is staff's recommendation report for minor variance application A6921 for 212 Alderson Court by Christine and Lawrence Gra. The purpose and effect of this application is to request a reduction to the minimum rear yard setback of the existing 2.24 meter, which is a 7.3 foot high deck. The deck was constructed without a building permit, and therefore this minor variance application is looking to address the deficiency. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet 4 tests to be considered minor in nature, that being that it's minor in nature, considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of the land, meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw and the general intent of the official plan. Staff have evaluated against these 4 tests, and in conclusion, based on the above comments, planning support the requested variance. I'm just going to briefly look through, but I don't believe that we have any comments or concerns from commenting agencies or authorities, but we do have neighboring comments. Mr. Bernard Morin from 212, I don't have his address, but in relation to 212 Alderson Court, has emailed to inform that they have no objections to the variance. That's from Bernie and Geraldine Morin. Oh, it's from 200 Alderson Court. And no further comments.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Groh, would you like to comment on your application?
I have no other comments, no.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any questions? Ken?
Through the chair, what was interesting for me was that I believe this particular unit, which backs on to the abutting detached property there off of Rebstock, I believe. It's well behind the existing detached home. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's what I understand. And so it really doesn't have an impact on that neighbor. At least we don't have comments from that neighbor to that effect. So I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you.
David, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
And I have no questions. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed, and I'll ask the members present if they'd like to express their views on the proposal. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I would be in support of minor variance A6921. It does meet the 4 tests for the minor nature. It also does not have a negative impact on the abutting property, which is a single detached dwelling.
Okay, thank you, David.
I would also be in favor of this minor variance. It meets the 4 tests, and I agree with what's going on. I have no problem with it.
Okay, I now entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll put forward a motion that minor variance A6921 for 212 Alderson Court. And that in consideration of all the written and oral considerations, that this minor variance does meet the Planning Act test for minor variance, and that it be approved.
May I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much for appearing.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. The next application tonight is minor variance file A70/21. Address is 114 Ridge Road North. The applicant is Ken Ganyu and Matt Vartanian. The owners are Chital and Ajit Aranha. My apologies again for that. Oh, excuse me. Okay, could, oh, they're coming. All right.
Good day.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks.
That's good. Would the Secretary Treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
Staff's recommendation report for minor variance application A7021 for 114 Ridge Road North by Ken Ganyu and Matt Vartanian, owner Shital and Ajir Arana. The proposal of this application, the application is to increase the maximum permitted lot coverage for an existing single detached dwelling. The requested increase to the maximum permitted lot coverage is to accommodate an uncovered portion of a deck with a height greater than 2 meters above grade. The Ontario Planning Act provides that the minor variance must meet the following 4 tests to be considered minor nature. Is it minor in nature? Is the proposed variance considered desirable for the appropriate use development of the land and buildings? Does the proposal meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? And does the proposal meet the general intent of the official plan? Staff have evaluated against the 4 tests. And in conclusion, based on the above comments provided in staff's report, planning staff are in support of the requested variance.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. And that is it. We don't have any comments or concerns from agencies or commenting authorities.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to make any comments on the application?
No, I'll abstain. The staff report is pretty clear and we agree with their recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any questions of the applicant? David?
No, I do not.
Ken?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
And I have none. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand and you will be asked to speak one at a time.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed, and I'll ask the members present if they would like to express their views on the proposal. David?
I'll be in favor of minor variance file A70-21. It meets the 4 tests. You don't see any issues with it.
Thank you. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I concur with my fellow member. I'll be in support of the minor variance.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion with conditions on these applications, please.
I'll put a motion forward, considering all written and oral comments, that minor variance file A70-21 be accepted, and I don't believe there are any conditions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Seconder?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much, Mr. Gagne.
Okay, thank you and good evening.
Well, pardon me. Okay, the next application tonight is minor variance file A71-21, 424, 426 Ridge Road North. Applicant is Jason Pizzicarola. Owner is Ridgeway Heights Incorporated. And he's being brought in. Okay. Jason, how are you?
Good.
Good. Would the Secretary Treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
Staff's recommendation report, minor variance application A71-21 for 424 and 426 Ridge Road North by Jason Pizzicarola, owner Ridgeway Heights Incorporated. The purpose and effect of this application is to request a reduction to the minimum required rear yard setback and minimum required planting strip adjacent to a residential zone required for mixed use development for the future development of a 3-story mixed use building. The application is requesting a variance to permit a reduced rear yard setback of 6 meters, approximately 19.68. The CMU4 zone requires a minimum rear yard setback of 10 meters, 332.81 feet for a rear yard that abuts a residential zone. This application also seeks to permit a reduced planting strip width of 1 meter, approximately 3.28 feet adjacent to a residential zone along the rear lot line of the property. Subsection 6.21 of the town zoning bylaw requires a minimum planting strip width of 3 meters, approximately 9.84 feet along the rear yard lot line for mixed use development adjacent to a residential zone. Staff have evaluated the application against the 4 tests of a minor variance, and in conclusion, request a variance with the condition that enhanced landscaping and buffering be provided along the rear of the property line to the satisfaction of the town through the site plan process. The only other comment noted through circulation was from our drainage superintendent, who just noted that it's in the south tributary drain watershed. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Would you like to make any comments on the application, Jason?
There are only a couple here. The landscape strip at the back, there will be a fence, so a wood style fence. And we are achieving the 3 meters on the 2 sides just to give cars a little bit more space to back out. And then on the reduction from 10 meters to 6 meters, the town, I would have been able to achieve it, but the town did take a road widening of almost, it was like 3.85 meters. So we kind of, a little trade-off there. Essentially, we had to slide the building back. And I believe that's it, fully fenced area. So I don't really foresee any impacts on the adjacent neighbors for like behind for that variance.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any questions of the applicant? David?
No, I do not, Mr. Chair.
Ken?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I was looking at the drawings and I just had a question for Jason with regards to the parking. I was interested to know that, so the parking is not underground, but is under the apartments above. So are the walls of the parking, the exterior walls, are they vented at all in order to provide some cross ventilation?
Yeah, that's wide open there. Yeah, there's just a few structural walls running through. And those also have some openings in it. Yeah, so when you're standing in the middle of the aisle there, you can look across and see the landscaping strip and the fence. Naturally ventilated, yes.
So it was just a personal question and very interested in the application. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand and you'll be asked to speak one at a time.
Chair, we do have, it looks like a couple members of the public that would like to speak, so I'll be bringing in Sean O'Connor first.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. O'Connor. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay.
Good.
What is your address?
It's 421 Ridge Road North. It's directly across the street.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So my question is to Jason and the town, is parking. As far as we can see, the building has 16 units with 16 parking spots. And our concern is visitor parking, and as well as the commercial, the two commercial sides are going to have employees, and I'm wondering where they might park, or where the visitors would be parking, and as well as customers that are maybe coming to those commercial spots, because there is no parking on this on the street, and I was wondering if there was any information on that.
Jason, could you respond?
Yeah. So when I first approached the town there, I had 2 additional parking spaces at the back where the landscaping is, but they said I don't require them, so they preferred to have a little bit of landscaping there. So that was 2 additional spaces. So I went with their recommendation on that. I understand the area does not have parking. Per zoning, I don't need to provide more than the 16 because the downtown core is exempt from parking. But hey, I go to the cafe and it's always a pain in the butt to park there. So right. I think, I did put forward a proposal to the town for a town-owned parking lot in that area, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. So the town doesn't require parking when they issue application for this apartment building in a residential area, as far as for the commercial spaces or visitors, the town doesn't. Do you take that into consideration or no?
Downtown cores are parking exempt. Only for residential, you need 1 parking space per residential unit. So, the town is relying on parking spaces within the downtown core. And I understand that area is difficult to park. So the town owns a considerable amount of land there in that area. And I think in all honesty, it is the town's responsibility to provide parking in the core when they implement that in a bylaw, that you don't need parking for commercial. So hopefully they can look at that and make plans going forward.
Okay. Can the town respond to that question? I mean, there's no parking on the street.
Well, that would probably be something commercial. Yeah, that would probably be something you have to bring up at a council meeting or speak to your counselor about. We deal with the zoning as it is, and it'd have to almost be a zoning amendment to require zoning in there or parking in there. Maybe they'll tear down that fire hall and they'll put parking in there. I don't know.
Maybe Jason.
It'll be deemed surplus at some point in the near future.
Yeah.
I can say that if the zoning bylaw was amended and addressed, it would be a process that would have to go through council. As right now, that core is exempt, as mentioned by Jason, from having to provide parking for commercial uses.
Yeah, but that's fine. But I would just say that that's really not I mean, I heard the words responsible planning and the rest of it, but I can tell you it's going to be a nightmare with parking. I mean, I already have enough people trying to park on my front lawn.
Yeah, it's an issue, 100%. Yeah, in that area for sure. So the town does need to address it one way or another. I offered 2 more spaces, and they preferred some plants at the back.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Chair, if I could suggest, you can always contact your local councillor or speak with the town in regards to addressing additional parking within the area when it comes time to revise our zoning bylaw and provide amendments.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only one thing I would add is I'm not sure if this is possible because I went for a reduction for 1 meter from 3 meters to 1 meter. But if we went from 3 meters to 0 meters, I could put 2 parking spaces in it.
That would probably require another minor variance application, I would expect.
Yeah, that's kind of
I
what
don't know if we can amend that now.
Never hurts to try.
Yes, I agree. Was there anything else, Mr. O'Connor?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who in the audience that wishes to comment?
Yes, there is. So I'll bring in Harold next.
Harold. Good evening, Mr. Wilkie.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay.
I am. I'm the property owner immediately to the north of the proposed area.
So
I've lived here for 30 years.
Okay. What's your address?
I'm sorry.
What's your address?
430. I live at 430 Ridge.
Okay.
430 Ridge Road North.
All right.
So that's the property immediately adjacent to the north. Sort of kitty corner across from Mr. O'Connor, who just spoke. So I've lived here for close to 30 years. I'm very familiar with the street. I have 2 concerns. Some of this will echo what Mr. O'Connor said, and I'll tie it directly into the variance application at the end. So my concern number 1 is congestion, and number 2 is safety. With regard to the congestion, as Mr. O'Connor said, there are 16 units and 16 parking spaces. I get that the town doesn't require more than that in an area that's zoned like the shopping district downtown. So that's the letter of the law, but this is more of a residential area. And so I think the town should consider some of the increased congestion here, particularly since there is no provision for visitor parking. And in 16 units, you're going to have visitors. There's also 2 commercial units on the front of this development. They also do not have any parking provided. Ridge Road does not have any parallel parking. It's not like the shopping district downtown that has the curbs pushed back to get some parallel parking in. And most of you know that even that is pretty congested. So there's no parking provided. It's going to be congested. It is going to back up Ridge Road. People are going to have trouble getting by. Anybody that parks out there, tries to park on the boulevards, is going to impede traffic. And I just heard a minute ago, I mean, do you proceed with a variance when the solution is maybe and hopefully the town will provide parking? Maybe. you go ahead with it anyways, and then, well, maybe you'll get parking. Maybe you can phone your counselor for the next town planning meeting or something. I just don't get that logic. So number one concern is congestion. Sean mentioned customers for these commercial units. Let's say it's a hairdresser or something. Where are they going to park? They're going to walk all the way from the downtown shopping area. I think Jason is correct that there needs to be more parking, but in the meantime, there isn't. So again, do you approve a variance for a maybe? My second concern is safety. The sight lines along Ridge Road are not good. There's an apartment building at 418 Ridge that has a sixplex. It's pretty close to the road. Anybody approaching from the south is not going to have good sight lines to this building. Anybody leaving and exiting this tunnel arrangement from the building is not going to have good sight lines to the south. And then if you add a few people trying to park on the boulevard there, that then impedes the sight line even more. And you end up with a situation similar to the, like down in the shopping area, you have a couple of alleyways that come out on the main road, one beside Jones and Jameson, one beside the Bank of Commerce. You really want more congestion with poor sight lines. If people park on the road, those sight lines are going to be impaired even more. So I might add, the congestion is only going to get worse. I understand that there are developers that have purchased the land in behind to the east. It's only going to get worse. So here's my conclusion. I'm opposed to the variance based on the fact that perhaps the land at the back of this building proposal would be better used for parking. Maybe they could squeeze in 4 or 5 spots. Don't know, but in the interest of short term, in the interest of the town not yet available or making any additional parking available, I think the land at the back of the building should be retained and used for parking. Even if you had 3 or 4 cars that parked back there that didn't park on the street, that would help. And so that's why I've taken the position that I have. And I think those parking spots could relieve some of the concerns of both congestion and safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does any of the members have any questions of Mr. Wilkie? Dave?
I do not.
Ken?
You're not?
Okay. Jason, just a question on site plans. When you're finalizing your site plan on this, would there be an opportunity to talk to the town again and revisit the rear of the property and maybe get some parking spots like you suggested?
Well, I've already kind of gone through that process, and part of my site plan application is going for this variance.
Okay.
So at this point, it would be, one would be a redesign, 2 would be another minor variance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, in retrospect, I should have not sided with staff and went for 0, and then we could have addressed this tonight.
Right. Do you happen to know what type of commercial businesses are going to go in? Do you have any leases now or?
No, I don't. These are definitely small spaces. So, one could work for a hairdresser or something like that. So, little retailers, they're not very big. So sidewalk shopping, I assume.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just everyone obviously is keeping in mind that we're not here for parking tonight though, right? We're not here for.
Right, no, I understand that. That's the thing. These weren't parking variances.
No, that's right, yeah. And then in terms of just address the safety issue. So this building, due to the 3.85 meter road widening there, it is set back further than the other apartment building it's right beside. And you'll be able to pull out, like when you drive through here, you're a full car depth out before you get onto the road.
Okay.
So I don't see how that won't be safe. It's a much better situation than the adjacent apartment buildings. So the views down the way would be fine.
Thank you.
setback, yeah, setback a bit further.
Okay, do you have any other questions, Mr. Wilkie? Okay, thank you very much for attending. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to comment? Raise your virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one else that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed, and I'll ask the members present if they'd like to express their views on the proposal. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'll be in support of the minor variance for A7121. Staff have reviewed the application. Certainly appreciate the comments made by the abutting neighbors with regards to parking. I think it's an unfortunate issue that we need to actually have this addressed through another forum. We cannot deal with it tonight. We're not empowered to do that. That's not what the application is about. So we will deal with the actual, whether it is a minor variance. And the two issues were the reduced rear yard setback and also the planting strip along the side. And staff has commented in both instances that they are minor variances, also that the proposed variances are desirable and appropriate as they will facilitate development of a mixed-use building in an area that's been identified as being part of the downtown core mixed-use area of Ridgeway. It meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and is certainly consistent with the design policy of the secondary plan for mixed-use buildings.
Okay, thank you. David?
I will also be in favor of this minor variance tonight. It meets the 4 tests. I understand everybody's concerns, but as Jason said, we're only here for the 2 minor variances and not for parking. So I'm in agreement with it.
Okay, thank you. I'll now entertain a motion. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'll put a variance or a motion forward for the minor variance A7121 for 424 and 426 Ridge Road North, that in consideration of all the written and oral submissions that this minor variance file does meet the Planning Act tests for the minor variance and that it be approved. I understand that there are no conditions with this.
Okay, thank you. Seconder?
Are we sure there's no conditions, or was there one about the site plan?
I was just doing a quick look, Dave.
Brianna, is there a condition on this?
Oh, yes, you're right, Dave. In the conclusion, it does talk about
that the enhanced landscaping buffering be provided along the rear property line to the satisfaction of the town through the site plan control process.
correct. Thank you, Brianna.
Seconder?
I'll second that, sorry.
All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, the next application tonight is minor variance file A7221, 183 Crystal Plaza. Applicant is Tim Carver Brothers. The owner is Richard and Teresa Taylor. Could you call the applicant in, please? Good evening, Mr. Taylor.
Okay.
We're just having some technical challenges there.
We know all about that. Okay, you're ready to proceed tonight?
Yes, we are. Thanks.
Okay. I would ask the Secretary Treasurer, please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please.
This is staff's recommendation report for minor variance A7221 for 183 Crystal Plaza by Tim Carver, owners Richard and Teresa Taylor. The purpose and effect of the application is to increase the maximum permitted height and lot coverage of a proposed attached garage. The applicant is requesting the following variances to section 6.1C and D, which are to increase the maximum permitted building height for an accessory structure. The application proposes an increase of 5.52 meters, whereas section 6.1 permits 4.5 meters. And to increase the maximum permitted lot coverage of all accessory structures on the lot, the application proposes an increase of 11.4%, whereas section 6.1D permits 10%. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet the following 4 tests to be considered minor and supported. That being is the minor variance, is a variance minor in nature. As for the increased building height, the requested increase to the maximum building height of a proposed detached garage is minor in nature. The existing dwelling on the property is 6 meters in height, while the height of the proposed attached garage is 5.52 meters. The proposed difference in height between the existing dwelling and the proposed detached garage will ensure that the garage will appear ancillary to the main dwelling. Additionally, it is anticipated that the streetscape along Crystal Plaza will not be negatively impacted, as the proposed garage will be set back further from the front lot line than the main dwelling. Impacts from the proposed increase in height will be mitigated, as the applicant has proposed side and rear yard setbacks of 2 meters and 12.65 meters respectively, whereas only 1 meter is required under section 6.1B. The increased lot coverage, the requested increase to the maximum lot coverage for all accessory structures on the lot is minor in nature. The existing detached garage on the lot occupies 34.1 square meters, which equates to a lot coverage of 3.04%. The application proposes an additional detached garage that will occupy 90.1 square meters, equating to a lot coverage of 8.36% and a lot coverage of 11.4% for all accessory structures. The 1.4% increase in lot coverage, equating to an additional 15.71 square meters, is not anticipated to overpower the lot, and the side and rear yard setbacks of 2 meters and 12.65 meters respectively will limit the massing impacts of the proposed structure on abutting properties, while maintaining a sufficient amount of space for maintenance, access, and drainage purposes. Lastly, an adequate amount of space will remain on the property for amenity area purposes. Is the proposed variance considered desirable for the appropriate use, development of the land and buildings? Given the property is zoned R2 and is designated urban residential, the use of this property for residential development and structures accessory thereto is considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of the subject property. Does it meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw for building height? The general intent of regulations that limit the building height of structures accessory to dwellings is to ensure that the structures appear ancillary to the main dwelling unit and that they are not used for human habitation. The proposal meets the intent. The proposed attached garage will be lesser in height than the main dwelling, resulting in an ancillary appearance. Additionally, the proposed attached garage will be 1 story in height and will not be used for human habitation. Rather, the applicants are proposing to use the structure for the storage of wheelchair accessible vehicles. For the lot coverage, the general intent of the maximum lot coverage regulations for structures accessory to dwellings is to ensure that these structures appear ancillary to the main dwelling and that the lot is not overpowered by accessory structures. The proposal meets this intent. The proposed accessory structure will be set back farther from the lot line than the main dwelling, and the proposed height will ensure that the structure will maintain an ancillary appearance. There's a sufficient amount of space, of open space to serve as an amenity area. And does it meet the intent of the official plan? The official plan states that lands designated urban residential are intended for the variety of housing forms, in addition to accessory buildings and structures. In conclusion, based on the above comments, planning staff support the requested variance. We do have some public comments that have come through that I'm going to read through now.
Mute.
So from neighbor Bonnie Williams, I am the neighbor of 183 Crystal Plaza. I disagree with this increase in permitted building height. I feel as though this will affect our street's small town charm. Also, my concerns are the next request against changing our community to a city atmosphere. It is a shame that we are in jeopardy of losing 100 years of small town charm. I believe the charm is what brings people here. Then unfortunately, their changes in their lots and buildings change what brought them here in the first place. I also am concerned about residents like myself that cannot afford our taxes to possibly increase because the neighborhood becomes more developed. Please consider this change. Keep our 100 years of tradition and peace and serenity alive in our town. I would like to be notified of your decision regarding this matter. From Lynn Milner, to the adjustment, I have a great deal of difficulty believing this building's ultimate future usage will be a garage/wheelchair vehicle storage, especially in light of the depth of the original foundational dig, almost 2 meters deep. That was, I assume, ordered filled back in awaiting proper approval. Couple this with the design covered porch area. Additionally, the plan notes lists electrical, drains, vents, and stair notes, all for verification by owner, yet not shown at this time. It has more the feel/look of a future living space. Originally, the owner informed me he was building a garage for his boat when he had the boulevard drainage ditch filled in with culvert and gravel. He told another neighbor he was building a shed. Now, according to this application, its intended usage is for wheelchair accessible vehicles. Why so many different stories? The oversized, unapproved, out-of-bounds dig costs our neighborhood the removal/death of approximately half a dozen mature trees and counting, more expected to die. I suspect over the next few years based on the root damage I observed. This was a very delightful home with a lovely garden, by far the most charming house on our street. Regrettably, what I am now looking at is an expensive renovation that looks exactly like Ridgeway/Toronto new build. The additional buildings the owners are requesting is totally out of the character of the rest of the street. The square footage of this supposed garage will be larger than most of the single detached homes in our immediate area. It concerns me the precedent being set for our neighborhood if this project is approved. It would be so much better if the owners would consider staying within the streetscape and do something in keeping with modest instead of maxing out his /our green space. That's what's so inviting about our little Crystal Beach dead end street. In summary, I'm against any variances that contribute to the oversized height, size, and footprint of the structure, let alone the entire idea of a third, fourth garage in a neighborhood that has mostly 0-1 garage per property. Lastly, if these owners don't turn it into living space with its very own new, not proposed driveway parking spots that have recently emerged during the renovations, the next ones will. Regards, Lynn Milner. And then, Mr. Taylor, would you like me to read the comments you submitted, or did you want to speak?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Brianna, if you could read those for me. Thanks.
Absolutely. I did receive some comments from Rick Taylor in regard to some of the concerns. On behalf of Terry and myself, we would like to say we have had excellent interaction from the building and planning departments through the minor variance process. We agree with the report of the Committee of Adjustment supporting our minor variance application at 183 Crystal Plaza. We would also like to say we have tried to be open and transparent over the past 2 years with our neighbors and that we love the neighborhood. We have moved here from another small town area and understand that adding a garage to our third lot on the property is a change to our older neighborhood. We have done our best to design the garage with respect to complement our bungalow and property. From one feedback received from the public in the package, it was very disappointing for us to read that our needs, including handicap vehicle accommodation inclusion for this variance, would be challenged as not valid. We hope Crystal Beach, including our neighbors, will be supportive and inclusive community going forward. Change will indeed be required at times over the next 100 years so that all people, whether abled and disabled, new residents or old, can live together and enjoy our small town charm. And that concludes all the comments received.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, would you like to add additional comments to the application?
No, that's all we'd like to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any questions of the applicant? Dave?
No, I do not.
Ken?
Mr. Chair, I do not.
And I have no questions. Does anyone in the audience wish to comment? Please raise the virtual hand and you will be asked to speak one at a time.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
All right, thank you. If that's the case, I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file now closed. And I'll ask the members present if they would express their views on the proposal. David?
I'm going to be in agreement with minor variance file A7221. It meets the 4 tests and have no issues with it.
Ken?
I agree with my fellow member. I will be in support of the application.
I would now entertain a motion with conditions on these applications. Dave?
I'll put a motion forward that considering all written and oral comments received this evening, that minor variance file A7221 be accepted, and I do not believe there are any conditions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Seconder?
I will second.
All in favor? The motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks very much for attending.
Thank you.
Okay, the final application is minor variance file A7421, 1570 Ridge Road North. The applicant Nick Mikkoloff, the owners Nick and Elaine Mikkoloff. Could you bring them in, please, Mackenzie? Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you ready to proceed tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Would the secretary treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
This is staff's recommendation report for application, minor variance application A7421 for 1570 Ridge Road North by Nick Mikkoloff and Elaine Fritshaw. The purpose and effect of this application is to allow an increase to the maximum building height of a proposed detached garage to 6.36 meters. Currently, detached garage exists on the rear portion of the subject property. The applicant is proposing an addition to the existing garage. The proposed building addition is intended to be used for the parking of a boat. The applicant is requesting permission to construct an addition to the existing detached garage, which will be 6.36 meters, approximately 20 feet in height. Therefore, a variance of 1.86 meters is being requested. Staff has evaluated the application against the 4 tests of a minor variance, and in conclusion, staff support the requested variance subject to the following condition. Should deep ground disturbances be proposed, the owner shall carry out an archaeological assessment and mitigate through preservation or resource removal and documentation, adverse impacts to any significant archaeological resources found. No demolition, grading, or other soil disturbances shall take place on the subject property prior to receipt of an acknowledgement letter from the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries confirming that all archaeological resources concerns have met licensing and resource conservation requirements. We do have some public comments on the application, which I will go through. And they state, good afternoon. We've received correspondence. They're from, Stephen and Susan Benyers. We've received correspondence regarding the application for a minor variance at 1570 Ridge Road North in Ridgeway. We are neighbors of this property at 1562 Ridge Road North. We reviewed the application and would like to advise that we have no concerns regarding the proposed minor variance, and as such are in support of the application. Should you require any further information from us, please do not hesitate to contact us. We also have another more comments in support of the application from Laurel Waldick, Richard and Laurel Waldick of 1581 Ridge Road North Ridgeway, and they have no objections to the increasing the maximum building height to 6.36 meters for the proposed construction of the garage at 1570 Ridge Road. They also said feel free to contact us, and that is it for comments on the application.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mikkoloff, would you like to comment on the application or any of the correspondence received?
Yes, I would. I guess our only concern, first off, I want to thank Brianna for the summarization. I guess our only concern is with the condition that the town is recommending with the deep ground disturbance. Truthfully, I don't know what is considered a deep ground when I think the rock here is probably 1 to 2 feet down. I don't know how much further I can go into detail of that, I guess.
Okay, well, that was going to be my question. Is did they give you a definition of deep ground disturbance?
All it says is, should deep ground disturbance be proposed? And we have a house that has a full basement. The garage, the garage / outbuilding that's out that we're attaching to, it's been dug out and it has a foundation and a floor that's been excavated before. So I don't know why we have to do an archaeological assessment.
This is probably something that's come in to the town since you built your house, I would presume. They've gotten little, they're way more concerned with archaeological digs and such.
Well, I understand that, but I would understand if we were into say virgin ground throughout the whole area.
Yeah.
But our adjacent neighbors, like there's buildings all over. There's a building in the back going on. I just don't understand I guess the whole concept on of that condition.
Well, the town has designated certain areas that, are high likely, not as much, where it is. And going down Split Rock Road, I wonder the fact that you had the what is it, the Battle of Ridgeway was close to there. And then I think that was probably some type of a native Aboriginal trail, I would think, Snake Road, I think they used to call it back in the day. That's only my own just thinking on that.
No, I understand that. And then when I looked on the Town of Fort Erie official site plan to look at the cultural heritage archaeological zones of potential, it's
Right.
pretty much 90% of Fort Erie.
Right. And that's something that's new. So, that's ergo the condition. Anyway, do the committee members have any questions? Mr. Mikuloff? Ken?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that the staff do have the permission to clear that condition if the so-called deep ground disturbance is not proposed. And the applicant has already stated that he's building on virtually rock. So I would question whether there is going to be this deep ground disturbance actually going to occur if that is the actual nature of the ground. You're not, to the client, you're not suggesting you're going to blast rock.
No, not at all.
No, didn't think so.
But we're going to go down to the rock in order to pour the footing and then the foundation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, if you're saying that, sorry, who would I be contacting then at the town? The senior developer that signed this off, that condition?
Brianna, do you have a response to that?
What's a deep dig?
So I think what staff was looking for was, and I had provided Mr. Mikuloff with a list of professionals in the area that could provide him with a letter, was a letter addressing that no deep ground disturbances were going to take place, and if they were going to take place, that an archaeological assessment would not be required. Staff is not qualified to determine, our staff doesn't have the expertise to determine whether or not the area is of archaeological significance until we have someone with the proper designation to do so. So I'm not sure if Mr. Mikuloff, had you had a chance to reach out to any of the?
Yes, I did. I reached out to, I forget the name here, let me look it up. It was Detritus Consulting Limited.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just saying that he needs specific wording from the town of Fort Erie that the assessment can be scoped to just the area of the build plan plus a 10-meter buffer. And he said the wording provided will not satisfy the ministry. That's all I was given from him.
So the building department, when they look at the plans and what you're going to do, they don't determine whether it's deep ground disturbance?
No, when I went for my pre-consult, the only thing I was told is I will need a minor variant for the height.
Right.
I will have to have the sign off from the region for my septic, that nothing will happen to the septic bed and lines and tanks, and nothing that was ever said about anything agricultural or sorry, archaeological.
Yeah, archaeological, right. Okay.
Like I really wish I would have known that part, because then maybe I could have did a little bit more homework, but, and then they're also telling me that it's possible another 8-week delay until they finish off.
We don't still know what a deep dig is.
And we don't have, nobody's really told us about what a deep ground disturbance is.
And, and so they did
Now
not
it's
want
just coming down to the time and money, I guess.
Sorry, Brianna?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get that.
Sorry, and that consultant did not want to come do a site visit of the.
No, he didn't mention anything about a site visit.
Okay. So from the condition through you, Mr. Chair, what I'm understanding that staff is requiring is just a letter from the ministry stating that there are no issues to the archaeological, potential archaeological resources on site.
Okay, so where does Mr. Mikuláš get that letter? What ministry does he have to? Culture and Heritage?
Yeah, Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries.
Well, from my understanding from the gentleman that I talked to, he stated that because of the Schedule D zoning, I'm gonna have to go forth with the agricultural, I forget the,
Not agricultural.
or sorry, I keep saying agricultural, archaeological. He says stage 1 and 2.
Yes, so it might be because you're pouring a foundation that is considered to be a deep disturbance to the land.
So I guess 2 feet is considered deep dig.
If it's being disturbed and the foundation is being poured.
Didn't the condition say he may be required?
Yes.
It wasn't shall.
Yeah, that's how I read it too.
True.
Yeah, so it does state may be required, and that's why really we were looking for acknowledgement from the Ministry of Heritage.
Right.
Sport. Yeah.
So that would probably be the best thing to do, is get a hold of somebody at the ministry and see if they'll come out and have a look at it.
So just inquire with the ministry, and then if not, I have to go through with, I guess, getting an assessment.
Well, but they would be the ones to determine whether you need that or not, correct?
I don't
They're gonna
know.
go out and look at it initially, and then they're gonna decide whether, that's, at least that's the way I read it.
Okay. Yeah, so it was possible.
Okay.
Okay. David, did you have any comments?
I'm gonna spoil the fun here and say that my limited knowledge that the ministry will not come out to a site and give you a letter. It has to be done by somebody by detritus. It has to be somebody doing an archaeological assessment on it. I don't believe that they have ministers that come out. So the condition is ambiguous because it doesn't tell him that he needs an archaeological assessment, but my guess is that you're gonna need one. Because that's the only way you're gonna get a letter. Someone has to write them for them to give you approval. So that's how I interpret how it works. So somebody can tell me differently, but that's how I believe it works. And the ministry doesn't send you a letter unless they have somebody who's been out there who's actually documented what's there, and they don't do that. So I understand Nick's point. I understand what the town wants you to do, but I think anything within a meter of surface to underground, they're going to make you look. And I think you're going to need an assessment from detritus or whoever you get, that he's going to have to come around and give you an assessment on it. I mean, I just think that's what's going to happen.
So there's no way around that because of that wording. Like we're saying, it's may or recommended. It doesn't say
I
shall.
think the issue is, Nick, is that it's in an area where they think it's significant, and without having anybody out there. I mean, I know what you did in the past. I mean, the problem is everything's changed, and we can't go by what we did 5 years ago. Everything's changed since then.
Yeah.
Having said that, in my, like I said, in my knowledge of what happens here is that you have to get an outside source that has some archaeological background, and he does an assessment on the property for you. And if he deems everything to be clear, he sends the ministry a letter, and then the ministry sends a letter back based on that information. I've never seen a minister from that department ever on site. I've never seen that. So that's the basic gist of how it works.
Okay.
I'm
Now,
sorry.
Brianna can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going by what we normally do, and that's typically what we do.
Yes, so I believe because you're pouring a foundation that it would qualify as a deep disturbance. And I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review and the list of the professionals within the area that can perform the archaeological assessments, but the consultants that were provided, but it would be my best understanding and guess that contacting them to come and perform that assessment would assist with the ministry providing you with that letter based on their assessment.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I guess from what he told me, I need specific wording from the town of Fort Erie for this assessment. Because I had shown him exactly what the recommendation was, and he said the wording provided will not satisfy. He needs to know what he's doing. Is what I'm just trying to relay what he told me.
Okay.
And did you have a chance to speak with the planner on file after that regarding?
No, I did not.
Okay, I would maybe suggest touching base with the planner and maybe she could provide you something a little more directive for the archaeological assessment.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I do not.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on this application? Please raise your virtual hand.
We do have someone that would like to speak to the application.
Okay.
Oh, geez. It's Jason.
So again,
Jason, how are
you? Good, good. I was just we're helping Nick there with his garage, and so what's happened on other projects that we've done is there's just a clause put in place to potentially say if anything is found at the time, then the proper procedures have to take place. So rather than have a full like a phase 1 or phase 2 archaeological. And the other thing that's happened also is when we don't actually dig a foundation, we just do a slab on grade, we've been able to avoid that situation. So is it possible to move that, let's say the application forward without a condition based on that and just deal with it with the planning side of things?
Quite frankly, my own opinion is that I think we have to have this archaeological assessment in as a condition. They're quite insistent on these. They're very, very rigid when it comes to these archaeological assessments. But that's what I thought. If you put a slab down, you know, would that be a deep disturbance? Probably not, right?
No, that's because I've been told if he did a slab on grade, then the archaeological did not trigger, but as a regular foundation would. Yeah. So I guess there's more information needed from the planning department.
Yes. Okay. But this was an assessment they wanted. They didn't want a phase 1 or phase 2 yet. You know,
yeah.
It was the least of the, you know, of the requirements.
Yeah, yeah.
From what I was told, I would need to go to a phase 1 and 2. That was through.
That's it. But wouldn't that only? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was through the gentleman I spoke with for the archaeological assessment. At Dietrich or
Dietrich, yeah.
Dietrich.
But wouldn't they have had to find something during the assessment to start to go to a 1 and a 2? Wouldn't it? I don't know. I
don't know how it works.
An assessment is a stage 1. Stage 1 is all archaeological. The guy
it is?
he gives you his opinion. That's a stage 1. It starts with a stage 1. Everybody does a stage 1.
I know this condition says may be required. So, you know.
So how do you have a condition when it's a may?
Yeah.
That's confusing.
It may be required. Staff recommend. Actually, it may be required. Staff recommend if no deep ground disturbance conditions can be cleared by the town staff. Yeah. So this still goes to the town staff initially, according to this, does it not? The condition?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So my understanding of the condition is that our staff is really looking to one of the professionals to provide an archaeological assessment. I see what you're saying. It says that may. No, I think that an archaeological assessment does need to be done in order to determine whether or not they can move forward with that without having to provide that phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay, right. So this must be less than a phase 2, phase 1.
Yeah, but our staff wouldn't be able to perform that archaeological assessment.
Oh, okay. So somebody has to go in and do it.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions, concerns?
No, thank you, Jason.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
Chair, we have no other attendees in the waiting room at this time.
In fact, that I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file closed, and I'll ask the members present if they would like to express their views on the proposal. Dave?
I'll be in favor of this minor variance this evening. I don't really have an issue with it other than having to take care of this condition that's set forth, but I'll be in favor of it.
Ken? Ken, would you like to comment on the application?
There we go. I lost my picture.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to say I concur with Dave and his comments. I would be in support of the application.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion now with conditions on the application. Dave?
I'll put a motion forward that considering all written and oral summations brought forward this evening, that minor variance file A71 or A74/21 be accepted with the conditions set forth in the town report.
May I have a seconder to that?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Well, the motion is carried. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Okay, could I ask for a motion from the committee to process the signing of the decisions concurred by the majority of the members electronically?
I'll put a motion forward.
Seconder?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Carried. Now I'll ask if members had any corrections to the minutes of October 21st, 2021, which were circulated. There being no further corrections, then minutes stand approved as circulated. Okay, is there any other business? Okay, the next hearing date is going to be on December 16, 2021.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I do have.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I do have other business. Just for those of you who are in attendance tonight, if you haven't responded to Kara about your availability or suggestions for the general meeting, if you can get back to her as soon as possible.
Okay. Dave, you're going to be gone, right?
Gone, yeah.
Nice. So if no further business, this meeting is adjourned at